The rain was biblical. It beat the sidewalks like 1,000 hammers. It wasn't the kind of rain that made you feel poetic or nostalgica. It was the kind that soaked you to your bones and made you feel like the world had forgotten you. The wind howled like it was mourning something ancient. Jason pulled the collar of his jacket tighter around his neck and leaned over to shield his daughter Mia as they waited for the bus. She pressed close, her small hand clutching his as she tried to avoid the icy wind sneaking past the shelter. "How late is it now?" she asked. 25 minutes, he muttered, checking his watch again. Figures. Always late when it's worst. It had been a long day. Jason had picked Mia up from her school, but detours due to construction forced them across town, and his old pickup had finally given up the ghost earlier that week. Now, here they stood under a flickering street lamp, the water pooling around their feet, waiting for a bus that might never come. That's when he saw them. A woman, soaking wet, hair plastered to her face, backpack on one shoulder, clutching a tattered umbrella with one hand and her youngest child with the other. 3 more kids trailed her like shadows. She looked equal parts powerful and exhausted, like someone who had held up the world for too long. They ducked under the half-broken shelter next to Jason and Mia. The youngest boy stared up at him with large, solemn eyes. Jason offered a half-smile. The boy didn't blink. He just kept staring. "Rough night," Jason said to the woman, trying to sound casual. She gave a curt nod, water dripping from the end of her nose. "You could say that." "Kids okay?" "Been better." "You?" she said, glancing down at Mia. "We're fine, just stuck." The woman looked down at her youngest and sighed. "We're all stuck, aren't we?" Jason hesitated, then extended a hand. "I'm Jason. This is Mia." She took it cautiously. "Elena." "Sergeant Elena Morris." "Military?" "Just out." 10 years. "Army." He nodded. "Thank you for your service." She gave a tired half-smile, the kind that says, "Don't say that if you don't mean it." But there was something sincere in Jason's tone, and it softened her face. The wind shrieked again, and the kids huddled closer. Jason glanced at the shelter's roof, which was doing little to keep the water out. "Look," he said finally, "I've got a place just a few blocks from here, nothing fancy, but it's dry. Got hot food, too, just for the night." Elena tensed. Her eyes scanned him, calculating, protective. "I get it," he added. "Stranger danger, but Mia and I have room. And frankly, that storm isn't letting up anytime soon." The youngest child tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, I'm cold," he said softly. She looked down at him, her resolve cracking. "Okay," she whispered. "Just for tonight." Jason's house wasn't much. A weathered little cottage with creaky floors and windows that whistled when the wind blew hard. But it was warm, it was safe, and it was home. Elena stepped inside, glancing around like a soldier entering new terrain. The kids peeled off their wet coats and shoes. Jason handed out towels and Mia began dragging blankets and stuffed animals from her room for the newcomers. The youngest boy, Caleb, Elena called him, wandered toward the fireplace. He stared up at a framed photo on the mantel. A man in Marine uniform stood tall, stoic, but smiling faintly. "Who's that?" he asked. Jason looked up from pouring cocoa. "That's my brother, Nate." "Was he a soldier too?" "He was. Marine Corps. We lost him a few years ago." Caleb nodded slowly. "I've seen him before." Jason raised a brow. "You have?" "In my dream," Caleb said simply. Jason's heart stuttered for a second, but he smiled and ruffled the boy's hair. "You dream about Marines often." "Number." "Just him." "And you were crying." Elena froze mid-step. Jason looked at her. Her face had gone pale. "Kids and their imaginations," he said quickly, trying to lighten the mood. But a chill settled in the room that wasn't from the storm outside. They ate grilled cheese and tomato soup, and the kids laughed for the first time in what felt like ages. Jason watched Elena watching her kids. There was love in her eyes, fierce and weary. She hadn't stopped fighting Yato, but she was tired. "I used to be stationed overseas," she said quietly as they sat later, sipping lukewarm tea. "Came back to nothing. VA waitlists are months long. Got evicted from a place I couldn't afford anymore." Jason nodded. "My brother got tangled in the system too. They promised help boot a broken bar. They never deliver. she finished. He looked into her eyes and saw the same thing there he saw in the mirror, scars hidden behind tired smiles. Mia played with the twins in the other room. Marcus, the eldest, sat at the edge of the couch, ever watchful. Jason saw himself in that boy, someone who grew up too fast. And Caleb, always staring. "Why does he keep looking at me like that?" Jason whispered. Elena didn't answer right away. Then she said, "He's different, sensitive. He says things before they happen sometimes. I don't know, call it intuition, call it faith." Jason chuckled lightly. Maybe he's psychic, but part of him wasn't joking. That night, they all fell asleep, some in guest beds, others on couches and blankets in the living room. The house felt full, and Jason hadn't felt that in a long time. He dreamt of Nate. They were kids again, building forts, laughing in the yard, then soldiers. Then a broken bar, the casket. He woke with a start, and standing at his bedroom door, barefoot and holding a small toy, was Caleb. "You miss him a lot," the boy said. Jason sat up. "You should be in bed." Caleb walked in, sat on the edge of the mattress. "He's not mad at you." Jason frowns. "What?" "Your brother, Nate. He knows it wasn't your fault." Jason felt like the wind had been knocked from him. "How do you?" "I told you, I saw it." He said to stop blaming yourself. He said you kept his letters. Jason turned, his breath caught in his chest. He kept those letters hidden in a box in the attic. No one knew, no one, except Nate, except this boy, somehow. The next morning, Jason stood at the kitchen counter when Elena walked in. The air between them was charged. "He told you, didn't he?" she said quietly. Jason nodded. "How long has he broken bar done that?" "Since my husband died," she replied, voice cracking. "In Afghanistan." Caleb started saying things, seeing things, names he couldn't know, places we never talked about. Jason rubbed his face. "I thought I buried all that, the guilt, the anger, the shame." "You didn't," she said. "You just built a house on top of it." He laughed bitterly. "Guess so." Elena stepped closer. "What did Nate mean to you?" "He was my best friend, my hero, my protector, and the one I let down." "You didn't." "He begged me to join with him, said he needed me there." I said number, said I couldn't leave Mia, and he went. And he didn't come back." Silence filled the space between them. Elena touched his hand. "He wouldn't want you to carry that forever." Jason looked at her. Her eyes were filled with the same grief, the same buried pain, and somehow, in each other's eyes, they saw the reflection of their healing. Later that day, Caleb asked to go to the attic. Jason hesitated, then led him there. The boy walked past dusty boxes and old furniture, stopping at a small chest in the corner. Without being told, he opened it. Inside, a folded flag, dog tags, letters stained with time. "He wrote this one for you," Caleb said, picking up the last letter in the stack. "But you never opened it." Jason stared, hands trembling. He opened it. "Jai, if you're reading this, then I didn't come back. I don't blame you. I never did. I know why you stayed, and I'm glad Mia has you. That little girl needs her dad more than I needed a fellow Marine. But promise me something, when you feel alone, help someone. That's how you'll find me again." In their eyes, "Your brother always, Nate." Jason sat on the floor and cried. Caleb sat beside him, a hand on his shoulder. Over the next few days, Elena and her kids stayed. What was meant to be one night stretched into 3, then a week. Mia cried when they talked about leaving. So did Jason. One evening, Elena stood with him on the porch. "You think we were supposed to meet?" she asked. Jason looked at her. "I think Caleb wasn't the only one who saw this coming." She smiled. "Stay," he said. "All of you. This house was never full until you got here." Elena's eyes brimmed. "You sure?" He nodded. "Family isn't blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up in the rain." A year later, the house looked different, louder, warmer, fuller. Photos of all 7 of them lined the mantel now next to Nate's. Mia and the twins were inseparable. Marcus finally learned how to relax. Caleb still said things that made Jason's heart stop, but now they shared the burden together. And Elena? Elena became more than a guest, more than a soldier. She became home.